Whakate hau ki te uru. Whakataka te hau ki te tonga. Kia makina kina ki uta. Kia mā tā rata tara ki tai. I hi ake ane te atakura. Hei tio, hei huka, hei hahu, tihei moria. Right, greetings, thank you. It's great to be able to catch up with you folk for the second meeting I've chaired. So I'm going to declare the meeting open. We're obviously live stream. I've got Sean helping me here today. I think Heidi's on leave. And at the moment we're set down to have the meeting for 2 hours. I think my proposal would be that we go for those 2 hours without a break, as long as folk are happy with that. But if it looks like we're going to go longer, we might seek to take a break at 3:30 if we are not finished by that stage. Okay. So if we can move to apologies, please. Thank you, Iona. Tamitha had let me know that she had other arrangements she had to attend to. So Tamitha is a full apology. Mayor Andy will be here at some stage in about half an hour's time. We were just trying to come from another meeting. And look, Linda, just to check, Linda or Liz, you aren't there yet by any chance? I know Linda was tied up with I think was at a family wedding over the weekend, so she was stretched to get here, but I think she was going to. I wonder if we could just include in our motions on the apologies that we just note that Linda and Liz weren't here. Sean would be great. So from the chair, I'll move that we sustain these apologies. Do I have a seconder, please? Somebody needs to yell out their name or put their hand up or something, please.
I will, Bruce.
Thank you very much, Jenny. Appreciate that. I'll put the motion then. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Those against? It's carried. Thank you very much. All right. Do we need to take a photo of everybody with their votes on this one, Sean? Or it's about Haiti did that last time. Green box. Yeah, the little second under reactions. Right, okay. So look, sorry, my mistake. Need to get into the Wellington motion. We all need to vote, obviously, and if you could do it, please, by indicating either the green tick or the red cross. Now, Sean will take a copy of that. So, for the want of doing it properly, I will put that motion again. All those in favour, please say yes. If you're against, please use the red cross. Thank you.
I can't find the green.
Have you got that there, Roy?
Yeah, I can't find the green button. Normally.
You go to react. If you go to reactions, Roy, you'll see it'll come up with the little icons.
I haven't got reactions. It looks different.
Is your thumb up? Is your thumb up, Roy?
Roy, if you've got the window minimized, you might see it might be under more. There'll be 3 dots and more. And if you click on that, reactions would be under there.
Okay, reactions. I found it now. Yeah, that's all right. Yeah, okay.
Great.
I was on minimized. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you for that, Roy. Rightio, Sean, are you okay? Sweet. Thank you for that, people. Appreciate that. Right, if we could move on to declarations of interest. Is there any matter in front of us that you need to raise your interests in relationship to? There being none, I'll move on to confirmation of the minutes. In your diligent books, you have the meeting. Separately, you have the meeting of our meeting of the 15th of September. They've been circulated. I'd like to move from the chair that we accept those as being a true and correct record. Do I have a seconder, please? Please. Thank you, Iona. Appreciate that. So again, is there any matter of accuracy or detail that need to be raised with those minutes? As I want to say, it looked like the meeting I was in, Sean, so I'm reasonably comfortable. So with that, I will put the motion. All those in favour, please put up their little green tick, or put the red one up, please. Right. I think we're probably there, are we, Sean? Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Right. There are no matters, no items on the agenda that I've been notified of. I would note that we have had, and it's helpfully received, a couple of extra papers as recently as just before lunch. If you could just remind me, Sean, we had one from Karen Young, our auditor, which we will take in Public Excluded. The second one was, oh, right, sorry, from Wellington Water, from Mark, who we will also hear from a wee bit later on as well. Sean sent those within the last hour. I haven't been notified of any public participation requests. So in that case, we will move on to our substantive business. We have, and ultimately with our paper on the annual report, I do want to deal with the recommendations in public, but of course it's a paper that also has a substantial amount which is to be dealt with in Public Excluded. So what I propose to do is that we move now into Public Excluded, so we can consider those matters which we, subject to a motion, believe should be dealt with at this stage in Public Excluded. We're at the end of that process. We will go back into public and look to deal with the resolutions that are contained within this paper. So if I could move to the recommendation that we move into Public Excluded, I will move that. The primary purpose is so that we can consider the draft 2020-21 annual report and the related audit process. And we have the various reasons set out in that resolution, noting, of course, that eventually this will naturally make its way into the public, as it should, in due course once processes have gone through. So if I could move that we move into Public Excluded. Do I have a seconder, please? Thank you, Jenny. Appreciate that. If I could then put the motion, please, and again, if you could put up the green tick. If you support that motion, please, the red cross if you don't. You don't, Iona? Right, got you. Thank you. Yes, okay, so we've got one against and the rest for, so it's a majority decision. Thank you. Right. I think I understand a betting order that would like to speak to the draft annual report. Right, we're live streaming now, Sean. Well done. Okay. Welcome back, everybody. Thank you to management for vacating the room for a wee bit. It was a useful meeting with Karen, so we appreciate your tolerance of us doing that. I'd like to now, in open session, move now back to the officer's report. Stephen, you raised general comments in the closed session around process. And indicated the process, the ongoing process that you are continuing both to pursue the completion of the annual report, but also the quality checks over that. Are there any questions about the open paper that members of the committee would like to ask at this stage? I suspect we've had a fair crack at it, including what we've been able to discuss previously. I wonder if we could move to the resolutions, please, and just work our way very quickly through those. Obviously, we received the report, that we received the draft 2020-21 annual report noting the audit's not completed until the 14th of November. And we know that might be just a wee bit after that until, I wonder if we should just change that until verbal clearance is given on or about the 14th of October, because we've already got indications it won't be the 14th. So on or near the 14th of October. Sean, please. Until, on or after, after the 14th of October. Agree that the financial statements for the year 30 June 21 fully reflect the financial position, results of operation, service performance, service performance achievements of Wellington City Council. And so we are then going on to recommend to Diane's committee, the Finance and Performance Committee, that they recommend that Council confirm the accounting policies, in other words, the way in which we measure and estimate our results. We recommend that Council adopt draft financial statements and statements of service provision for the city and group. It's important to note, subject to the resolution of any matters identified during the meeting and receiving final clearance from Audit New Zealand. I think we've dealt with the matters we can keep subject to the resolution. Well, you're subject to the resolution of receiving final audit clearance. We don't need that middle phrase there, Sean. It could go. C, we recommend that if you go into the middle of B, it says that we'll recommend, etc. And then there's that final phrase, subject to the resolution of any matters identified during the meeting and receiving final audit clearance from Audit New Zealand. I don't think we have any matters identified during the meeting. That's all I'm saying. Oh, of course, sorry. Yeah, thank you. Read it properly, Bruce. You've made a good statement to me, Sean. Thank you. We recommend that the Council adopt the annual report. Sorry, so good point. We're recommending to the Finance Committee that Council adopt the annual report for the group year ended. Within that, we're also adopting the draft response to Audit New Zealand on the fraud questionnaire. We discussed that matter at a prior meeting. We delegate to myself as the chair and Jenny as deputy chair of the Audit and Risk Subcommittee, the authority to deal with any significant issue arising after this meeting. That's just an important safety valve should there be more matters that arise prior to the clearance of the financial statements. We delegate to the Chief Executive Officer the authority to make minor editorial changes. And Amy, I think, has already indicated there's a potential for some checking going on in the way that's being talked about. And we note that the subcommittee is made aware of the issues in the group entity audits. While it does not review the financial statements of the group entities in detail, and that due to their size and structure, the individual results are unlikely to be material, either individually or taken as a whole in relationship to the consolidated financial statements. That seems a reasonable suite of recommendations, and one which I think is in our competence to make both within terms of the our terms of reference and also the subject at hand. So to enable debate on that motion, I will move the motion. Do I have a seconder, please? Somebody might need to just yell out that they're going to second that for me, please. Do I have a seconder?
Yeah, I will. That's Roy.
If that's you speaking, Roy, for some reason I can't hear you.
I'm
Can you hear Roy?
unmuted.
Oh, like me talking through
I'll second it.
I can't hear him. Try it again, Roy.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I've got you now. Sorry, it was because of arrangements with Sean, I had to be muted. Okay, thank you for that. So look, is there any debate on the motion that's in front of us? Please, it's substantial. I've obviously taken some time to read through it. We've taken a lot of time to debate it. Is there any discussion actually on the motion that people would like to raise at this point? There being none, I'll put the all 8 resolutions as they stand. And we obviously got to use our voting machine. All those in favour, please put a green tick up or a red cross if you are against the motion, please. Thank you. It's carried. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Okay. There's a big key piece for the year for the committee. So thank you for your giving us time for that. I wonder if we could then please move on to the next item that we have on our agenda, which is indeed item 2.2, which is the Enterprise Risk Maturity Survey. And I'd appreciate some briefing on that, please.
Kia ora, Bruce. Kia ora, councillors. You can see me on the screen.
I can see you, Richard. Well done. Looking good.
Kim next to me, Kim Wright. Just a very brief background. We'll take the paper as read, but this is the 4th year that councillors conducted this survey. It's a Department of Internal Affairs framework, and it's a self-assessment. Our rating as a council is consistent with other public sector organisations and broadly similar to that in the previous 2 years that we've done this self-assessment. Whilst the score itself is significant, the actions that we're taking to raise our maturity are even more important. And Kim and I can answer any questions that you have about those actions and provide you confidence that we are working to do that. And this committee 2 months ago, or mid-year, approved Kim's risk management plan for the year, and a lot of the actions directly address the same maturity ratings that come out in the survey.
Thank you, Richard. Appreciate that, and this actually is quite an important report in terms of taking a bit of a temperature gauge or health gauge on where we're at. Members, do anybody have questions for Kim or Richard? Yes, Jenny.
Thank you. Kia ora, team. On page 324 of our papers, in figure 4, it talks about whether there are differences in the views of different roles, and we compare executives, non-executives, and risk practitioners. And I was just really interested at in figure 4 on the executive level, there was a massive shift. So there was a 1.99 score in the previous year, and then suddenly we went up to 2.77, and then we've come back down again. Can you at least just start by clarifying who is the executive? Is that just ELT?
That is just ELT that answers those questions.
Okay. I would be fascinated to hear from ELT about that, because it's odd. I would just be really interested to have a conversation. I don't know if there's somebody who's here now that we can have that conversation, or if it's something we might need to do at a separate event, but it was very striking, and I feel like it deserves a little bit of additional conversation.
I think, Jenny, it's probably worthwhile having that conversation in a different forum, and we've got more of ELT together. Obviously, Sarah and I are here, but we're not we don't obviously make up all of ELT.
That we probably have a similar
view
for us.
Some context, Councillor Condy. The survey last year, I think most of ELT answered that survey. This year, the survey went live 2 days before lockdown, and so I think it was just 2 members of ELT managed to answer the survey. They had, understandably, other priorities.
We did have a lower participation rate, so although we did pull out those roles, I recognise that it's quite hard to draw really strong conclusions from that. And also, this is the first year that we included our risk champions who sit below tier 3 as well, so there's probably a bit of change there too in some of the makeup of the people who answered the questions. So over time, hopefully we'll develop a bit more of a trend and a pattern, but I think year on year it's probably a bit difficult to draw really strong conclusions from changes from last year to this year, because we have different people participating, but it's really important to include those numbers anyway, just as a record, I think.
Yeah, I mean, it's useful to understand that only 2 people were completing the survey this year, and that makes sense with COVID going on. I guess it would be useful to know what the completion rate was for ELT last year, but I still think, taking all of that into account, it's a very striking difference. I think it would be worth having a conversation, finding the right forum to do that, because as far as I can tell, that difference seems like a pretty strong driver for why the score dropped from previous, from a previous year, whereas in other groups the score was kind of held pretty steady or gone up. But yeah.
Yes, it's a very good point, Jenny. Stephen, I wonder if you could give that some thought. Essentially, we're explaining it away on the basis that only 2 of ELT responded, and yet it is, I suspect, in the way these would be scored, a very significant result. So I just wonder if we could ask you to, with Richard, to think through and Kim to think through perhaps the knowledge deficit we have in quite knowing where ELT sit with risk management. I think from my perspective, you guys are the engine room of the risk management process in contrast to our governance role, and it would be reassuring to know that ELT are comfortable with risk management generally.
Yeah, and probably just to say, it'd be interesting to know if we rerun this survey with all of ELT participating, what the result might look like, and potentially we could do that. And look, Sarah will chip in as well. From my perspective, ELT takes risk management really seriously. It's a regular topic. We're driving through the new risk management framework, so I think things are a little bit out of kilter here.
Well, that's encouraging to hear. That's great. I hope that's helpful too, Jenny. Appreciate that.
Yeah, it's definitely my feeling was looking at it, it just looked a bit skew with. So let's follow that up.
I haven't speculated because I wasn't here last year when this happened, but it could also be that we've had some change in the ELT, and there was a very optimistic person on ELT last year, because with a small ELT, it doesn't take much to shift the scores as well, I think. So it's a bit hard to draw the conclusions.
We haven't banned optimism, Kim.
Yeah.
Never mind. Are there other questions for Richard or Kim on their report, please, in the outcome? Look, you're obviously, your eye goes to those areas where, assuming we've got the right population, we've scored lower. Critical is obviously dealing with that. I see your point that you've got, particularly as it on page, if I'm looking at 323, some actions you'll take, which is fine. Iona, can you ask your question, please?
Thanks for that. Look, I just wanted to reflect. It's great to see such honesty. It's actually quite good to be able to say, actually, this is where we're at, but we've got a plan to go forward. I guess just the question is whether you think you've got enough organisational support and resources to really up our game.
I think that
what do you need from us as well?
Yeah. Some of the measures are really those big, long, burning culture and capability across the organisation ones. So that's really not about resourcing. It's more like a long-term culture shift. And I think the things that we're doing in our team that we've developed in the work plan will actually help that over the long term. And some of the more immediate fixes we've actually got in our work plan. So I feel we're resourced to do those things, but the long lifting for things like partnerships or the roles and responsibilities and capability across all of our management, that's going to take longer, and it's really on everyone in the organisation. So I think we do have the leadership support for that culture shift in terms of the conversations that are happening at ELT and the new framework, and also it's my understanding that having the fully populated new risk register will be one of the KPIs, the C's KPIs. So I think we do have that support.
One thing that may be useful for this committee to discuss in the future is a risk appetite statement that supports council and local government sector outcomes, because we don't have that. That's one more piece of the framework, and that would enable really robust debate when there's sort of competing outcomes and what's the risk appetite for letting go on some things.
Thank you for that. Any other questions? Jenny?
Yeah, thanks, Richard. Just following up on that, I noted when they were in the framework, when it was talking about risk appetite, they also talked about like clear definitions of innovation and change, and kind of getting a clear understanding of what the appetite is because obviously change and risk kind of go hand in hand. So I think that would be a really interesting and useful conversation for this committee, but then also I think broadly for the governance group as a whole.
I think it may be we're too early on the maturity journey to have that conversation right now. Maybe when we get to 2.5 or 3.
Yes, don't tell me it's 3 years away though, Richard. Which probably is the case we're going to get to 3.
We do on the strategic risk framework or on our enterprise framework have our ability or to adapt to major changes. One of the threats we'll be assessing using the new framework. So I think that might open up some opportunities or conversations about how we manage change now and the role of risk in that, and then how we'll be managing it in the future. So I think those conversations will be held once we actually do that assessment. So I think change.
I guess it's useful to understand, for example, external change that we can't avoid. So COVID, or those sorts of things. How are we going to respond to that? But I guess I was thinking more about there's been a strong push from the governance through the LTP for significant change in our work program, for example, and understanding how those things fit together, how those decisions fit together with risk and the risk that is entailed in those things would be useful in the future when at the appropriate moment.
Thank you for that, Jenny. Are there any other questions at this stage for the team? So I think it's a useful check along the way, Kim. And I think the committee's, at least in the way I've heard the questioning, very keen, firstly, that you feel comfortable that you've got the resource to do the job. And I hear your point, it's cultural change. And I think it's also incumbent upon us as a committee to help you with that cultural change. As I indicated when you and I were talking about the paper, I'm thrilled that you've got a group of risk champions inside the organisation. If at some stage and in some way there's a chance for us as a committee and them to meet or to, I don't know, share a cup of tea and encourage each other, I think that would be great, because it's part of the cultural shift that you're trying to achieve. So I leave that as an open offer. In some way, we'll work out some innovative way to make that happen, I hope. Can I move to the recommendations, please, which is firstly you receive the report and that we agree that further updates on our progress to increase enterprise risk maturity at your risk committee meeting. I think we've got a strong affirmation of that from the nature of the discussion. I'll move from the chair, please, that I'll move from the chair these resolutions. Do I have a seconder, please?
Right.
Thank you, Jenny. I see Jenny's hand up. That's great. Thank you very much. I'll put the motion then, please. All those in favour, please say aye. Oh, no, use the reaction button. There we go. Thank you. I think you're right there, Sean. Thank you. It's carried. Appreciate that. Right. If we could then please move to item 2.3, assurance and business integrity update. I think, Phyllis, you're going to lead us off on this one, if I'm right. Thank you.
Kia koutou. So just to highlight 3 main points about the report. So there's 3 main sections of the report, and the first bit is about management actions to address audit recommendations, both from internal audit and other assurance providers. So no key items to highlight there. I think progress is going well and there's no long overdue items. The second bit of the report talks about the legislative compliance and the actions from the previous meeting, asking us to provide priorities and to develop a time frame for reporting back. So that's included in this paper for this committee's approval. And the third bit of this report focuses on our integrity update. So it just provides some information about our protected disclosures that we received over the last quarter, as well as to introduce the elected member gifts and hospitality disclosure monitoring process, which this committee has asked about before. So just in terms of that last bit, in terms of a verbal update, which for the disclosure process. So we've went out to all elected members to ask them to disclose any gifts or hospitality that they receive over the last quarter from 1 July to 30th of September. And we've got a 73% completion rate. So 73% is not too bad at all, I think, given that this is the first time that we are running this monitoring process. We are just pending responses from 4 of the elected members. And from all the responses that we received, there were nothing that of concern to note. So they all seems really reasonable and well below the $150 threshold that we actually said required for disclosure. So we actually have members disclosing more than required. So I think that's all good. I'm happy to take any questions to the chair.
Thank you, Phyllis, for that and for a very interesting report. Members, can I invite questions of Phyllis or indeed Richard at this stage about a really important area? This is providing us with assurance over the controls we have in place. Be very interested in questions. I think it's, Roy and then Jenny.
Thank you, Bruce. Thank you, Richard, for this. I really want to know whether you think that your the spread of work you do is sufficient, quantity you do, and whether you're covering a wide enough area. You know, you've got a very small group, as far as I can tell. It's just you two, and maybe one other. Is that right?
Yes, there's 3 of us in our audit team.
So two more, Roy.
Yeah.
And 2.5, in fact, because we have a maternity cover person. So.
Well, I still think compared to other organisations of the same size, that's not a lot. In fact, it's less than I would expect. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I do appreciate this question on resources. It's quite useful, and I'm grateful for it because it does. Obviously, I'm really interested in how we provide assurance to the organization. At this stage, I feel that we are sufficiently resourced, but always open to suggestions or assurance need that the committee or others might have, and see how we might deliver that or prioritize that, or in some instances, seek additional resources to do that. Yeah.
It would be quite useful for you to compare the size of your department with others. Bruce and I both know that how many? It's about 10 departments.
Yeah, that's correct.
And then others, Christchurch and Hamilton and so on. I'd be interested to see where you are on that line, because you don't do as much work as you've got resources for at the moment. And if we gave you another 2 people, you'd fill that up easily. But it's a matter of where you pitch it.
Yeah. We're happy to look at that if we can, if the information is available, and we are happy to look at our audit plan as well to bring this back to the audit committee that to approve this plan and to understand what area of assurance the committee would like to see, or that we think that we might beef up a little bit more.
Yeah.
Happy to have that discussion.
That's right. I think that's the right structure, Roy. It's what Phyllis says, which is actually what assurance does the plan give us? And indeed the organisation, is that adequate? And that would be the basis for starting to make that determination. So that would be very interesting to see that, Phyllis, in the long run.
Bruce, perhaps could I just make a brief comment? I think the key place to start is what does the assurance program look like, and then what the priorities of the subcommittee are, and then we have a resourcing question: have we got enough resources to deliver that? Rather than starting at the other end and kind of filling up the up that bucket. Anyway, yeah. I think it's a useful conversation in terms of what are the priorities that the committee sees, and then we can have a secondary conversation about do we have enough resources to deliver that.
agreed. I think we were arguing the same point, but I take you said much more eloquently than I have, I think, Steve. That's great.
Stephen, thank you.
Thanks, Roy. Jenny?
Thanks. Just wanted to quickly pick up on the gift register for elected members. It's really great to see this happening, and for the first time it being kind of more, I think it's been, in the past it's relied on elected members remembering, whereas this is kind of a bit of a push notification to remind people they need to do it. What I recall from the conversation when we had it over a year ago in the committee was particularly a concern about councillors not realising that they needed to declare events tickets that we might get through like the mayor's office or things. That's the sense of them kind of felt like they were kind of internal. They weren't like external gifts, but perhaps when people are going to the ballet, they consider that kind of, whether they weren't quite capturing that correctly. So I think that the information that has been sent out kind of does capture that, because it gives, as an example, 2 tickets to the Nutcracker at the Opera House, which is useful. But I guess it would be useful to think about whether there are other ways to remind councillors. So, for example, I know that we get founders tickets from the Michael Fowler Centre that gets sent out from the Mayor's office. It might be useful in that email when it gets sent out to remind people, like, here, these tickets are available to you, but if you claim them, remember that you need to, if they're over $150, remember you need to put them on the gift register. The other thing I was thinking is it might be worth, I don't know if Sarah's still on the call, but just following this up at councillor only time, just to remind people about the gift register. Because that's the memory I have from that conversation, was it was particularly about tickets, where there was a question about whether people were remembering to disclose them. I also had a question about, in paragraph 16, it talked about one protected disclosure was received, but the matter was closed and the person chose to withdraw from the process. That's kind of the first time I think that since I've been on this committee that I've seen that. So it would be great to have, I guess it's not super reassuring to hear that it's been closed because the person withdrew, rather than it's been closed because there wasn't any case to be found. But maybe that's quite a normal part of the process, and I'm just new here and this is the first time I've seen it happen. So Richard, I don't know if you could, obviously without disclosing anything, just kind of talk me through that.
I can comment on that. So it was withdrawn from the protected disclosure process. So yes, we did close it from that end, which include some legislative requirement around reporting and timeframes, etc. But what happened in this case is that it just went to a normal the standard complaints process to be dealt with in this situation. And that just means that we dealt directly with the business unit manager rather than through a protect disclosure kind of stuff.
Right. Thank you. That actually is very reassuring, and maybe if that happens again, we could clarify that. It's just that obviously at the concern of somebody just going away, they may not feel like it's been properly resolved. So it's great to hear that it's just that it moved to a different type of complaints process, not that it just disappeared because it's too hard. Thank you.
Yes, it may be that a withdrawn complaint doesn't mean to say we don't have an integrity issue inside the organisation. So I think that's a very good point, Jenny. So a wee bit more colour around the nature in future would be great. But having said that, thank you, Phyllis, that we have at least got this reported here. That's great. Other questions for Phyllis Richard at this stage? There being none, thank you again. I found it a very helpful report as I start to learn the nature of the assurance process. Phyllis, you heard our concern that actually we're interested to know have we got the right ultimate overall approach and resourcing. You heard that, I guess, expressed from the committee, particularly by Roy. So it'll be interesting to see where we can go on that one. So we just moved, there are 7 recommendations which follow through in effect from the various aspects. It's a sort of an omnibus report from Phyllis. So we received the information, we note management's progress to address the recommendations from internal audit and other independent sources of assurance. We approve the priorities and reporting timeline identified to address legislative non-compliances and partial non-compliances. We note that the impact of the reported non-compliance and partial non-compliance is rated minor to moderate. We note that the update on integrity activities include the number of protected disclosures received in investigations and process. We note the update on elected member gifts and hospitalities received procedures, and we agree to receive a statement on the completeness of the quarterly update of the elected members and hospitality register, which I think adds a bit more backbone, if I can, to the whole process around gifts. Those are a good suite of recommendations. I'll move from the chair that they are adopted. Do I have a seconder, please? Thank you, Jenny. Jenny was first up there, Anna. Thank you for offering as well. Is there any debate on the motions? There being none, I'll put those motions in, please. All those in favour, please use the green tick. And if you're against, if you could use the red tick, please, or the red cross. Right there, Sean? Oh, has Mayor Foster has joined? Are you there, Andy? Maybe away from his computer. I think we've got to carry it otherwise. Thank you. Right, if we could then go to the forward work program, which is, I think, you, Stephen. Have I gone quiet?
Thanks, Bruce. The forward program, pretty self-explanatory, although in talking with you and with Richard, the annual work program 2022 to 23 coming back in June, I think we can do a lot better than that. And I guess just picking up on something that you've been keen on, Bruce, is a 3-year work program rather than just a 1 year, and getting the cycle of all the things that we know are reoccurring in there. So that's that I think we can definitely bring back to our next meeting in February.
Yeah, I think we should just agree to that now. We've got to do that, and it would be good. So in effect, 5 moves up to 4, doesn't it? In reality, so that's good.
And probably in February we would have health and safety on that agenda too, that might have just dropped off as part of our quarterly kind of update on that.
Yep, thank you. That would be good. I think it's necessary. It's also the check that we'll do through developing our annual work program, or at least even if we can go out 3 years, because that'll make certain we don't drop something like that off. Thank you for that. I'll assume that you've given your report. I'm going from the top of the screen, Jenny, Diane, and then Roy.
Thanks. I was just wondering about the management letters from the auditor. So have we received the management letter for the LTP audit, and when will that be on our agenda? And when are we expecting to receive the management letter for the annual plan audit, and when will that be on our agenda?
So Karen's still online. She can perhaps
I'm still online.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So we haven't received the letter yet.
So sorry, first of all, I do apologise for the delay. I guess we've been prioritising the audits. When's your next meeting? Maybe I can work backwards from there.
The next meeting is the 2nd of February.
Oh, okay. We'll scrap that. When do I need to provide that, Stephen?
I was going to say yesterday, but
I think I knew that.
I'll take the audit opinion first.
Yeah. Well, why don't I provide it at the same time as the management report, which we've undertaken to provide you on the 15th of November.
Yeah, that would be good.
Okay. So our councillor about the annual plan. Because we don't audit the annual plan, there's no such report.
Sorry, I meant the annual report. Apologies.
Okay, sure. So 15th of November.
So it'll be on our 2nd of February list, Jenny. Good, thank you. Diane.
Thank you.
Yeah, look, I just thought I'd mention, I see Stephen's picked up that there's no health and safety on the forward program for February. And just so you know, we had a bit of a discussion at the Finance and Performance Chairs meeting today. So I'm still of the view to get a quarterly report, not so much from an audit and risk perspective, but from a overall performance perspective, making sure that all councillors are aware of due diligence and undertaking their responsibilities, because waiting 6 months between reports for the audit and risk is a long time. So just noting, Stephen, is that something that is possible?
Look, from the meeting that we had earlier today about your desire to have that on the Finance Performance Committee, we'll take that up with Meredith and just work out the timing, but we heard what you had to say.
Thank you.
Thanks, Diane. Roy.
Hey, I've got 2 questions. Is there going to be another meeting before the end of the triennium? We've got February, June. Will there be another one in September? Because we could start to plan for that one. Because by the end of September, we're all gone.
Yeah, most probably. We haven't thought.
Probably another one.
Yeah, there'll be another one. Not most probably you're all gone. No. There will be another one scheduled in September.
Okay, and I'd like to see Audit New Zealand on each one of these programs. There will be something at each meeting that we need to discuss with Karen. For example, we've already discussed what's going to happen the 2nd of February, but 1st of June next year, I would have thought we'd be looking at the audit plan if we haven't already looked at it. Is that right, Karen?
Yes, Roy.
I prefer to see it
actually
February.
That actually is quite late, so we would be aiming to provide something to council
2nd of February.
before February to enable them to include it in the February papers, because otherwise we're always we don't, the purpose is to obtain the subcommittee's view, advice, guidance.
Yeah, thank you for that, Karen. And look, I will take up your offer with speed, because actually the 2nd of February is the right time. So Roy, your point about us needing to clear the annual plan is quite right, but actually February is the time to do that, given the meeting times, not 1st of June. We'd be more worried about receiving at that stage Karen's update on the interim. And I mean, you've indicated, for instance, a time, that would be a key time, for instance, to understand where we're at with the water meters, which has been such a big topic for us today. But I mean, that's the sort of thing. So, from an audit cycle, definitely February for the annual plan and June for the interim results. Sean's also just whispered in my ear that the 7th of September is the date we've got settled for the September meeting, Roy.
Bruce, just thinking about that, the process that we've just run through this very meeting regarding the annual report, that will be repeated obviously a little earlier in September next year, ahead of the election. So it might be slightly different date in September, but we'll work that out.
Okay.
But yes, definitely a meeting and a similar process to what this committee has just been through.
No, I'm with you, Stephen, and look, I appreciate that. I think it was just useful that Sean said that we actually do have a meeting scheduled, but I also take your point. It needs to be around there, and there'll be a meaningful negotiation with Karen to make certain we're signed off prior to the election, which is highly desirable. Okay, that's superb. So look, that's really helpful, team. It's great to have that discussion and Di and yours in terms of the focus of where some of finance and performance are going. That it just again reflects the value that if we had our annual program in front of us, it would make this a more coherent discussion. So appreciate that. And Stephen agreed. Looks like we're building quite a good and sizable meeting, dare I say, for the 2nd of February, which will be superb. Rightio. Are there any other points people would like to make at this stage? There being none, can we just move to the recommendations, which I think is simply that we receive the information. I don't think we need to do anything about noting what we've discussed. Stephen, you've got that. We've got work to do to get a full plan up in place. So I'll move from the chair that we receive the information. Do I have a seconder, please? Wouldn't mind somebody's hand going up. I can't see it.
Oh, Sean
did it. Oh, Sean did it. Sean, you're not on my screen, but you did. I'll take it that you did. So I'll put the motion, please. All those in favour, please say aye. Oh, sorry. Yeah, I've got to get back to this. Ticking thing, don't I? Please, green tick or a red cross, whichever one you want to do. You right there, Sean? Oh, sorry. Yeah, Sean. Too many Seans in the room. Okay, that's great. Thank you. Right. I think I've got one piece to go, haven't I? Action tracking.
Bruce, look, I don't really have anything to add. The report's pretty self-explanatory. If there are any questions, fire away.
Thank you. Any questions, Stephen? Good to see the action's going. Good to see there's enough green coming there, or that there isn't action required. Don't we have a sense? Just check that 2.3 legislative compliance, which is in I suppose it's in progress because we had the first of those with Phyllis today, and there's a schedule of the other two coming. But in effect, we've got that going, have we not?
Yes, we do.
So I wonder whether, on the basis that you keep the program up, I think we could consider that complete, couldn't we?
I think so. We can drop that off.
Yeah, that would be great. That's good. Great. Well, look, I'm going to, I don't want to keep us going too much longer. I'll move from the chair that we receive the information. Can I have a seconder, please? Yell out for me because I don't see everybody.
I'll do it.
Oh, thank you, Anna. Brilliant. Thank you. Appreciate that. I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Oh, sorry. Yes. Oh, gosh. You see, I'm in too many different types of meetings here. There's the green tick, please, or the red cross. Thank you. It's carried. Appreciate that. Right. Now, by my recollections, that's got me to the end of the meeting. So, look, just before I declare the meeting closed, can I just say thank you, and I think it's, if it hasn't been reiterated elsewhere, to Sarah and your team for the draft annual report. It's a substantial undertaking, and you've given us the chance to see something which is pretty clean, as I think I've said before, one which I think is both transparent and honest, and that's that's all that I can ask for. So I'm very appreciative to you, to Richard, and if I start trying to name names, I'm bound to miss somebody off. But if you're on Sarah's team, thank you very, very much for all the people, for all the work that you've done. And also to Richard and the risk and assurance team as well. It's great to have the conversations we've had to see what's actually happening. So I am very appreciative. And my colleagues, thank you also for your input today, particularly around the annual report. Could I, in declaring the meeting close, just close with the karakia, please? Inahia ki te uru tapanui. Kia watea, kia mama, kia nako, tia tanana tia wairoa. I te ara takatu. Koe rā e rongo. Whakaria ake ki ranga. Kia watea, e rā, kua watea. Thank you, people. Appreciate your time.